Hi everyone, I am Ferreiro, a business development manager of CaixaBank, a specialized service of the DayOne, a specialized service of CaixaBank that work with tech companies and venture capital investors. No? Today we have an amazing panel with us. They combine different point of views, such as the visions of financial venture capital with Roma Jelinskaite of Caixa Vital Risk, equity crowdfunding platform with Daniel Oliver, CEO of Capital Cell, and also entrepreneur back firm with Ignasi Heras, general partner of SeedLink Ventures. It's a pleasure to have you here with us to share your insight of the digital industry. Thank you very much to all. I want to start with a set of questions around your funds or platforms strategy in terms of number of the operations per year, ticket size, structure, and also investment criteria. So when you want, Ignasi, can you start?
Yeah, I start. Thanks, Alex. Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks, DayOne. Thanks, La Caixa also for having us today. I'm pretty excited that today it's really, many people coming today, so compared with last year. So really excited that things are moving on and in the right direction. So, Ignasi Heras, a founding partner of SeedLink Ventures. We're a venture capital firm exclusively investing in digital health. So, geographically, we invest in Europe, we invest in early stage, roughly 500,000 euros as a first check, and up to 2.5 million per company. So, especially we're interested in three verticals in digital health. The first one in digital therapeutics, digital biomarkers, and platform-based business models. So, we have invested in 11 companies so far. Two from Spain, and we're excited to also co-invest along with Caixa Capital Risk and also Capital Cell. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Ignasi. Roma?
Hello, hi, my name is Roma, I'm from Caixa Capital Risk. So Caixa Capital Risk is a venture capital fund that has 300 million assets under management. We have three areas, which is technology, life sciences, and industry 4.0. So I'm from technology fund. We are almost, in whole Caixa Capital Risk, we are 30 people. What we do in technology fund, we invest in early stage companies, mainly focusing on Spain and Europe. However, in Spain and Portugal. However, the IP could be located anywhere in Europe. And we invest from 0.5 up to 2.5 million. In terms of specializations, we are generalists. We do not specialize in specific vertical. However, for example, in digital health, we have SIUS. We normally invest into 3 or 4 companies during the year. We also have a multi-stage strategy. So our current fund invests in the early stage, but we also have a strategy to invest in the later stage. So starting from Series B, 5 plus, and 50 million, etc. In Caixa Capital Risk also we have life sciences, and life sciences is the part that actually invests in biotechnology, etc. So that's about it.
Sorry, Roma, can you explain the roles of the team, like principal, the investment committee, like in timings?
Okay, so normally our team is composed of analyst, associate, principal, and management director. So in all those 3 areas, we have different teams. So in life sciences, for example, we have teams specialized, in biotech team, etc., specialized in life sciences. In technology, we have different backgrounds, so from economy, engineering, and financial, etc. In terms of our investment process normally is like a capital. So it takes around roughly probably up to 8 weeks, when we start analyzing the company, when we make the references, when we present to our internal committee, etc. Normally, when we decide on the investment, we have 3 gates. So in the first gate, actually, basically the senior team has to agree on the investment. Then we go to the pre-committee where there's management presentation, and we look a little bit more into the founders and how they present the product, etc. In that management presentation, we have also participants from our IC, and then the last gate 3 is the basically investment committee of the final decision, with I would say basically looking into economical aspects of the company and also a little bit of business. But the whole process is quite efficient. It takes, yes, around 8 weeks, although we normally follow the companies a little bit earlier. Sometimes it could even take less time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Roma. Daniel.
My name is Daniel Oliver. I'm the director of Capital Cell. This is my face, so that you know me. Capital Cell is a specialist investor in health and biotech, and we're an equity crowdfunding platform. So we are actually a mixture of a couple of things. We are a team of specialists that selects companies a little bit like a VC would do. We analyze them, we select them, we help them structure the round, and we make sure that the investment is sound. And then we have a large community of investors and an online platform where absolutely everybody can invest. So we take these relatively large investments. We do anything from 200,000 to 2 million euros, and we break them into pieces so that anyone can take 500 euros or 200,000 euros of that round for themselves. And that's the way we operate. We look for companies, we put them on the platform, and we expect people to invest in them. It's working pretty well so far. We've been operating for, I've been saying 6 years, for 2 years now already, so it must be almost 8. We have invested in about 60 companies, and we have completed almost 70 rounds, which makes us, in Spain, one of the most active, or maybe even the most active in number of operations, investor in biotechnology. All in all, we have mobilized around 60 million euros for these 60 startups. So you can work out very easily the average size of our rounds.
What do you think is still lacking in the Spanish ecosystem, if anything, if you compare with other European markets? Ignasi.
Well, this like we could discuss about this for hours. I would say that the ecosystem needs maturity in terms of entrepreneurs, in terms of teams, in terms of even VCs and investors. So, as an overall, always it requires some maturity. I would say that, but especially in digital health, I would like to point out that the lack of who pay for digital health solutions. So it's especially relevant because here in Spain we have a really good public health system. So that means that we are used to have a free healthcare providers. So that means that for digital health solutions and new providers, when they want to sell it to customers or to new patients, it's really difficult that they turn this mind and think that they have to pay for something that it should be free. And indeed, also in Spain, also we are pretty also in tech we are really not used to pay for things. I remember the last time that WhatsApp wanted to pay €1 per year to use WhatsApp. It was like the world was crashed. So that so that mix of different people reluctant to pay for healthcare and for digital, I think that is one of the main challenges still to be developed. Also for healthcare system, hospitals are really again reluctant to changes. Also in new solutions and new technology solutions, the doctors and the other practitioners are really reluctant to do new changes and to interact and create new things, especially in digital. So it makes that the adoption of these technologies and the payment of these technologies are really we need to really to do a lot of still to do, like some sort of evangelization of these new technologies. And then it's the reimbursement. There are some other hubs or other countries in Europe, especially in Germany. They have this DIGA. These are an agency to reimburse digital health solutions. Also in France, it's doing something. In the UK and in Holland, but still in Europe, we are some, especially Barcelona Health Hub, Biocat, EIT Health, and other partners. We're trying to promote this new agency in order that healthcare providers can also refund digital health solutions. So I would say that one of them it's who pay the party and who pay for the solutions.
Thank you, Ignasi. Roma, it's your turn.
Yeah, I think I agree with Ignasi also in the part that I think Europe compared, well, generally not Spain, but generally I think Europe compared with, for example, United States, or Europe compared with maybe Central Europe compared with Northern or Anglo-Saxon markets, basically we lack later stage investors and maybe more risk averse, so very proper to the risk investors. So that, for example, in case of digital companies, digital health companies, so biotechnology, or for example, deep tech, etc. So people are, or VC investors actually are willing to risk more, invest more in these type of companies because, it's, for example, we are B2B SaaS and deep tech investor because we did also investments in B2C. And this is a whole totally different strategy and type of investment and the risk. And also you need a lot of patience in the sense. So, for example, biotechnology, digital health, etc. Also, to your point, to the exit point, we don't see it very, very soon, or we struggled to see it soon in the Europe. So I think these are basically the main things that European lacks. But it's not also from ecosystem. It's growing, and I think it's still very young, and it's doing very positive thing, and we are growing. And Americans, for example, came into this industry earlier, and now I think we are doing very good job. Of course, we still need to catch up. But I think Spanish ecosystem, for example, Spanish market, and even startups and the VC funds and international fund coming here, the progress is amazing done during the last, 5 years.
Thank you, Roma. Daniel?
Well, I should think, and I'm sure that everybody thought of it, basically what we lack in Spain most, I think, is talent. And when I mean talent, I don't mean that we're a dumb nation. I mean that entrepreneurship, VC investment, etc., is relatively young in Spain, particularly in certain sectors like health. The first ever biotech spin-off in Spain was in '99, I think, something like that. The first ever scientific spin-off in the community of Madrid was in 2007. So it's all pretty recent. And when a sector starts, it means everybody's doing everything for the first time. And the first time you do something, whether it is, creating a startup, investing, finding a romantic partner, dancing or whatever, well, you're not great at it. But we're already seeing how the ecosystem has accelerated. And in the health sector, it's been pretty dramatic over the last 5 years. The number and the quality of the startups has really grown thanks to the entrepreneurs who've been successful or have failed and have recycled themselves as entrepreneurs, as advisors, etc. So I think that probably the wheel needs to turn a couple of times so that every startup that fails or every fund that fails or succeeds, pollinizes and creates a richer ecosystem. But we are still, I think, a little bit green in talent.
Okay, thank you. So that question is related about that. I want to open a debate about the talent. So do you think there are some profiles that you can hire here in Spain? Or what do you think, the quality of, or not?
Well, absolutely. I think that there is a lack of professionals, but indeed it's because the market it's growing, and as in emerging market means that there are new roles, new professions, new data scientists or new people and really trained people that are required to fulfill the needs for those companies. So especially where we have lacks in our companies of especially for engineers, data scientists, and it's really competitive space, especially in digital health, that we are competing both with IT companies, the tech companies, classical, global, for instance. So they really have a more solid knowledge or more solid positioning there to compete for those engineers. And on the other side, we compete with a healthcare big industry. Some, Novartis, Sanofi, and others. So, and they have large salaries as well. So that means that as you as an entrepreneur, you have a startup, a small startup, you're with a lack of resources, and you really need to attract talent that it's not abundant in Spain still. There is a lot, of course, but still, as it's an emerging market, and it's really difficult to attract them. So it's about the project sometimes. It's about, to explain what it's, a vision. Also, the leadership of the founders, it's key for this. And we also try to promote them and to support them on finding those great profiles.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Roma.
Yes, I think, from the, for example, tech guys, engineers, I think generally here in Spain and for example, particularly in Barcelona, we have very good talent, and in Europe also, because you can see that, that all the American companies also come here, they look for the talent, etc. I think there is a challenge, and I will agree with Ignasi, for the startups to compete with those big tech companies, comparing the salaries, etc., so to attract them. But overall, I think there is a very big, great, and talent pool here in Europe and here in Spain. Name it, artificial intelligence, etc. And I think there is a specific profile, at least from our perspective, from our experience in our portfolio companies, and when we talk with other VCs, when we talk, and here and Spain and around Europe, etc., is a commercial sales profile that we are lacking. I think tech profile is we are quite good. Of course, there is a lot of room to improve. But when we talk about the commercial sales business type of people, I think here where we need a little bit of, to strengthen our talent here. Yeah,
I'm going to agree with Roma on this, because technical profiles, everybody's missing technical profiles, Germany, the US, everyone needs a lot more engineers than they have. And I could think of, specifically in biotech, I could think of a few profiles that here are sorely missed, like clinical medical officer, chief medical officers, etc., etc. But I think that the structural crisis of an ecosystem comes when you don't have enough people with the soft skills to be a CEO. Sales, leadership, etc., etc. The ability to bring a commercial point of view into technology. And I think that if I have to think of something that is probably inherent to Spanish culture, well, we are, as a nation, and I'm generalizing here, no one should get offended, well, we're not great salespeople. That's what one of my mentors, Nigel Fleming, said that, and he said that the proof that you Spanish are not very good at selling is that, you produce like 2/3 of the world's olive oil, but everybody buys Italian. So it's true. This is something we could get better at, have better leaders and better commercial CEOs.
Oh, thank you so much. Another question. In such a competitive environment of capital supply, how do you achieve differential value to be more attractive? So, do you help, for example, internationalize the company, relations with other funds, relations with other corporates, composition of the team, etc.? So, Ignasi, when you...
You want to start before, like... always
first.
monopolize the first position. So, well, in our case, we find that point in super specialization. I'm looking forward, to know also the strategy of Roma. It's pretty different than us. So for us, it's specialization in digital health and in these three verticals that I mentioned before, and in Europe. So that means that we try to be, the most well-known. Or at least the most well-known, one of the most well-known VCs in Europe in digital health. So that means that really know what it's, that is, narrow space in the industry, and to be the partner of choice for entrepreneurs, but also for their investors. So, so we don't think that we compete with other VCs. We like to share. We are a bit more hippie style, to share than in order to, to give, in order to receive. So, in that way, we try to complement always the cap tables, not only with us on this super specialization, but also for generalistic or other VCs, that they incorporate other capabilities and other knowledge in the field. So said yes. I think that it's depending always as the team. And we at SeedLinks, we are two managing partners, a team, Jürgens and myself, so with different approaches. He is more from the corporate executive, from Bayer and Roche. And I'm more coming from the entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur, and I was founded by Caixa Capital Risk some years ago. I was really happy for this. And indeed, we have these complementary skills that we try to support the companies in more like a bottom-up approach, more as an entrepreneur turned VC, and with more executives, so somebody that knows what is important to have in the company to be acquired by a big corporate. So trying to have this mix and dual view, we try to support our companies on that journey.
Thank you, Roma.
From our side, I think it's if I think and I'm a VC and I go to also we do pitches also for the for the startups, And when we say how we differentiate from very, very, very difficult to differentiate, but because there are a lot of great VCs, a lot of also hands-on VCs, and with rich network, etc. So there is very little space to differentiate. I think what we do is we differentiate as a hands-on VC, but who actually is very, very involved in day-to-day, I would say, not say operations, but the day-to-day life and challenges in terms of the basically commercial side. We are part of Criteria Holding. Criteria Holding actually is a very big, if I may say, animal of 22 billion, where they have financial institutions, insurance business, plus 85 investments in capital markets over Europe, etc. So we have very, very good industrial network. And one of the main challenges in the startup is actually having, not only the first clients, but having actually the feedback from potential clients about their product, about their solutions, etc. So it's not always having the client, but having also the feedback of the industry, fine-tune your product market fit, etc. So this, with the whole industrial network that we have, which is actually not small network, and we work very closely with the corporates, with R&D, let's say, and innovation departments, etc. We know their struggles, so that's why we connect either portfolio companies or not our portfolio companies as a pro bono, and that's how we sort of differentiate from others in this sense, I guess.
Thank you, Roma. Daniel, your turn.
Well, I'm not sure how to answer that question because, we are essentially a very, very unique type of thing. We are probably, I would say that we are a startup more than a fund, really, because we have created a type of financial company that didn't really exist. We were the first company in Europe to use equity crowdfunding to help biotech companies. So I would say that we, identified a pain in the system, which was early stage biotech companies deserved far more investment than they were getting. And we designed a thing using crowdfunding to address the problem. As of today, there's only a couple of other companies in Europe who do the same thing that we do. We're still the largest in Europe by far. And even in the ecosystem in Spain, I'm not sure that the only thing we need to make sure is that we keep giving the companies what they need. And we are, I think, a very, very unique way of getting that €1 million you need for your business at the very start. So, we just keep doing what we do. If that was the question.
Yes, thank you. So, have you noticed inflation at the valuation companies? And more important, what are the costs? What do you think?
I can start if you want, Ignasi.
Daniel.
I don't think there is obviously a certain inflation. That depends on the sectors, but as more and more investors flock into a sector, in this case, high technology startup investment, the valuations obviously go up. They go up by a pure affair of offer and demand. But it is true that I think that I've seen lately a certain pattern of growth in valuations that are slightly beyond what is reasonable. And particularly, I'm sure you're going to laugh at that. We are seeing a lot of people who think that their companies should be valued for what they are and not for where they are, which is actually relevant, meaning the same company cannot be valued equally in Barcelona or in London. If only because, if you're in London or in California, an engineer is going to cost you 200,000 per year. Here it's going to cost you 60. So you need less money in here. It doesn't mean that you have to part with a smaller part of the business. The fact that you can do with 1 million what an American does with 10 doesn't mean that you can keep your valuation at 10 times what it should be. So I think lately I've seen a slight imbalance in that, valuations go up and the only thing that you see is that the investor's share of the profits goes down. And that, I think, is a little bit irrational. But other than that, valuations obviously go up and up as more investors appear in the scene.
Well, I think there definitely there is an impact in the markets, and actually the markets dictate. Hello? Yeah, I'm back. The market dictates valuation actually, and indeed there is a lot of money going to the venture capital, etc. So there is actually, and there are not so many startups basically, or not so many startups that some investors would like to invest, and that's why this is a basic rule of supply and demand, and I guess we get very high valuations. That means, for example, we as an investment fund, we don't fall in that trap, because if you have if you're a founder and asking very, very high valuation, which is actually unreasonable, and you will have problems to justify that valuation in the later stages, etc., you'll have your cap table jeopardized. So we normally try to talk with the founders when they when they have very, very high expectations, and some of them actually is because they are inexperienced and they don't know what the consequences are in the later stage, and with the objectives, what kind of objectives they need to do in order to justify the later valuations, very high valuations, and also they don't understand that the money that they get, they need to digest. So it's very important, and we try to talk with the founders, etc. And normally we actually have very good conversations and we arrive in the very good consensus. Sometimes of course not, but then for example we don't go for the hyper, valuation, etc. So yeah, look for the correct opportunities for ourselves and for our founder here.
Good point, Ignasi.
Thanks. Well, I agree with my colleagues in the panel. Just to point out, we see like some sort of more like increasing cost of goods or increasing cost of resources with the talent, increasing engineers as we were discussing before. Second is supply and demand. I think that me as an entrepreneur 10 years ago, my company and Seed, it was like valued at 1 million. And right now, the same company, I'm sure that it will be like 4 or 5 million or 6 million. So it's really, I really changed in terms of valuations, of course. And indeed, I think that it's also part of, a few years ago, the VCs put some sort of ratio risk to investing in Spain, in tech. And that's why, because there were not success cases at all. So that means that it was some more like a bet to see what it was going on. And indeed, it was a high risk to see if that company really could be a potential good exit for the investors. So this has changed. Unfortunately, we have many unicorns, many good exits in health and also in tech. And that makes that VCs understand that there is a value there. And you do some sort of projected cap tables from exit strategy until the current round at the early stage or Series A, you can realize that the value should be higher. And indeed, the founders understand that as well, and they have more chances to select what are the good investors for them. Again, 10 years ago, it was cash capital risk, almost alone with InverReady and other investors, but it was really an emerging also market for VCs, and there was really a scarcity of VCs. Right now, fortunately, we are more, and that makes that the good companies and the good projects can also decide what are the good partners to come in. And not only in Spain, also in Europe. Still, I think that, as Daniel was pointing out, the Spanish founders still keep, in the Spanish market, also for raising funds. And that's they're losing an opportunity because the valuations are higher abroad. And when we are raising a round, a European round, then the valuation increases like, 1.2, 1.5 times. So I think that it's also a great, difference, or one of the drivers that changes this valuation criteria. And last one, it's I think that compared with the US that somebody was also pointing out, here in Spain, agree that we are more focused on what you have, and in other markets as the US, it's more like a vision, what you wanted to achieve. Here, sometimes maybe because we don't have many success cases, there is a lack of valuation based on what is the vision of those founders and what they are going to create, and we're more based on okay, what are the metrics, what is the data that you have. That it's important, but I think that it should be a mix.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say something about that?
Yeah, of course.
Which maybe you don't agree, or maybe from the VC point of view you see it differently. But the thing about being a Spanish entrepreneur and having a global vision, going to a global market, and try to fundraise on the international stage is that Europe, which is a cradle of culture and a very advanced continent, it seems to me that culturally we still have a limitation here. And you can see it very, very clearly with private investors. Europe is actually a collection of small villages, and we mistrust the people from the next valley. So, a company from Toulouse, which is 200 kilometers up north, might as well be from another continent because, they're French. And for a private investor, it is incredibly difficult to invest in a startup from another country. And generally when I say that to people, they think that it's not like that, but it is true that we have tried to get Spanish investors. We have put on the platform, French companies, Israeli companies, Swiss companies. You get 90% less investment, just like that. And actually, on our platform, we can see that people invest up to 20% more in a company that's from their own city. So I don't know if that happens on the VC level, but I think that thinking of Europe as, the US, an absolutely global place where a startup from Idaho can get money from New Jersey and from California, I don't think that's going to happen in Europe at a private investor stage anytime soon. I mean, we would still need to be a lot more unified in investment criteria, taxes, banking criteria, etc. When we opened the company in the UK, you wouldn't believe the hostile calls we got from people who were outraged because they had to transfer the money to an escrow account that had a Spanish account number, and that was intolerable for an English. So I think that makes that fundraising on a local stage for early stage companies, sadly, is still more a necessity than a bad habit.
Yeah, and also to your point, I think, from the investor perspective, because we also, for example, do invest in companies, especially in the early stage. We do invest in the companies that actually closer to our markets or the markets that we know, and they do not have to have, like I said, the whole company doesn't have to be here, but at least very important part, whether it's tech or commercial or whatever it is, it has to be focused at least in Spain or Portugal, because we know those markets. And to your point, why for the investor in Europe, it is important to invest in the companies that actually are located in the markets that they really know, because the ratio of success of, helping them, introducing to potential clients, I guess, helping them to network, all the commercial challenges and overcome all the commercial challenges, this kind of success opportunity is a little bit higher, especially in the early stage in the European markets, because as to your point, yes, indeed, compared to USA, European is not unified market. Nevertheless, this changes totally for the later stage companies when, you don't have to, and I don't know if I'm choosing the right word, to babysit them. And, they are companies that are like Series B, etc., and that they go by themselves, and actually they do not need, this particular smaller successes in their markets in order to be trustable, like you said, in other markets. Yeah.
Roma, sorry, would you say that this happens with a Spanish company can still raise a Series B, for example, entirely with international partners, even without a local VC?
Sorry?
Do you think it is easy for a Spanish company to raise an international round, let's say a Series B, with 0 local VCs, fully international?
Really difficult.
No, I think actually the whole market is changing now. I don't know, we talk about, like maybe 3 years ago, not, but this, I think, last year when everyone went digital and, everyone actually, so the world actually went global, and there are a lot of Spanish VCs, sort of Spanish startups that actually raise now the funding round in very early stage with international investors, and the the Spanish startups that actually have maybe local investors also raised international rounds in the later stages. So actually, this kind of I think I don't know if I'm answering correctly, but this the so the composition of your investors, whether these are international or more local, etc. Actually, this importance of I think it's not so important anymore, and rather the product and the team, etc. is more important than the composition actually of your cap table. It's my opinion.
Oh, well, on our side, it's a bit, well, we have, I think, three different styles of investors. We are like super specialization in Europe, local winner or local champion in Spain and or Iberia, I would say. And here, a mix of both, so taking the good things of both things. So on our side, we believe that being close to the funders is important. So with that statement, or we invest in companies, especially, we have three main geographical areas. First is Spain, and the other one is the DACH countries. Because we have a small site in Berlin, or a small site in Lausanne, in order to give us capillarity also for those markets. So said this, for companies, always we invest in, or we co-invest along with companies or with other VCs, that they are these local champions, or the local guys. So it could be, Caixa Capital Risk if we were in France, or or Capital Cell if we were based in Berlin. So we understand that you need to have somebody in local, because otherwise it's difficult for us to. We need to trust in a partner that will be there. We're close to the partner. If there is something that it's close to the team, if they require something, they will be really, really close to them. So said that, I do believe that, I will not suggest a company that raising a Series B without a local player, because that will be a topic. It will be great, but I think that will never work, because you need somebody like the Series B guys wants then to co-invest along with a local player that knows the guys, knows the team, know the background of them, and they will support if something happens in a really quick way.
Good learnings. Controversial opinions are welcome. So what are the key factors to attract international funds? Depending on the geography, location of where company is born, does have more or less company success. What do you think about that? For example, a company born in another hubs like Galicia, or if you compare with Barcelona, Madrid, or of Berlin, London, etc.
So I think, again, I think, for example, we as a VC, we go scouting, everywhere around Spain, in Portugal. We also go to international, like international exhibitions and, startup meetings, etc. So actually, if founders are really very, forward-going, etc., they can be located perfectly in Galicia, for example, or somewhere else, actually, where if you have a right talent there, and actually could be a little bit less expensive, and you can still raise, you still fundraise with international or even local or international investors. That's actually, I think it's maybe more difficult, but not impossible. Definitely, for example, if the company is located here in here in Barcelona or Madrid or any top metropolis like London or whatever, Paris, whatever it is, they have more opportunities, they have more meetings, they have less cost, to attend networking events, etc. So for them, it's actually, networking is very important in terms of fundraising, being close to potential investors. Some investors come and scout, I'll be there in 2 days and I will be there in Barcelona looking around, or I will be in Madrid, etc. So actually the location sometimes is actually advantage, and you cannot go from Galicia, from other cities. Nevertheless, we have great hubs, for example, in Valencia, Basque country, with specializing in cybersecurity, etc. So we have like different hubs here in Spain. So I think it's pretty much equalized, depending on which industry you're working. Definitely more easier in metropolis, like I said.
Well, I fully support our colleague. I think that there are two things. First one, it's as we can see the unicorns and exits in the last year, we can see that good companies, good founders, and good exits may arise from everywhere in the world. Especially right now, with after COVID, all this homework and these things, it's even more. It's more normal. The new normal again. It's that there are deslocalized teams, so that innovation may arise from everywhere. But the second thing is that initiatives as Barcelona Health Hub, science parks, technology parks, Barcelona Activa, so the different public and private programs and initiatives support the local ecosystems. So said this, all these unicorns and exits mainly come from the big hubs in Europe, let's say Berlin, London or UK, and also the Northern Europe. So that means that it's true that the good innovation may arise from everywhere, but of course the big hubs, and especially the ones that are really promoted from public and private institutions, are really a thing on this.
Thank you, Ignasi.
No, I think the reality is that certain places give you a much better chance at succeeding, depending on what you're doing, and it has to do with a startup, which is by definition an extremely difficult thing to do. A startup is a company that identifies something that no one in the world is doing better than them, and there are two guys with a PowerPoint, and they aim at fixing this big problem. And we can be talking about curing cancer or transforming logistics. So by definition, it is extremely difficult enterprise. And for it to reach success, it requires a little bit of a perfect storm. You need talent, you need speed, you need money, you need, mentoring, you need a cheap place to place your office, you need support from the government, you need a ton of things. And, certain places have that, and certain places do not. And I think that you mentioned Galicia before, and it's a very good example of the difference you can see. Galicia is a place where biotech is extremely interesting in Spain, and it's one of the regions in Spain that has bet more heavily on that. They created, I think, the first tech transfer fund for university. The University of Santiago has extraordinary science. They have a very good cluster. Bioga is very active. They try to mentor companies to bring in international speakers, etc. They do a ton of efforts, but still, the ecosystem is poor because it lacks one or two key pieces, whether it's the amount of people, the capacity to attract international talent, money, so whatever it is. If you go to Barcelona, you would have a much easier life. And depending on what you're doing, if you're developing micro-robotics for health, the Basque country is a fantastic place, and you're much better off there than in places. So I think that creating a perfect ecosystem, which probably Barcelona is the closest thing we have to that in biotech in Spain, is a difficult thing, and it gives you as a country a champion to make life a lot easier for entrepreneurs. And I think there's a ton of examples in the world, Silicon Valley, Leuven in Belgium, Basel, Cambridge, Barcelona, etc., etc. So yeah, I think it is extremely important.
Thank you so much. We talk about talent, about capital supply, international funds, inflation valuation, the importance of the geography when the company board. So we can learn today amazing learnings, amazing insights about all of you. So thank you very much for making this panel possible.
Thank you very much for inviting. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.